piece. So I'd like to introduce Russell Beck from a company called ImagineThinkDo, who's got this really fascinating title as the Director of Inspiration. And being an ex-HR guy, I'm really looking forward to this bit because this is about the people aspects of this and the impact that that has. So Russell, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Russell Beck, and I'm a director in the people strategy consultancy ImagineThinkDo. Our purpose is to inspire, challenge, and enable leaders to unlock the value of their people. Many thanks for inviting me to speak at your conference here today. I hope you've all enjoyed the sessions that have been so far this morning and look forward to engaging with you in the Q&A session directly after I finish. We've been talking for over a decade that we should start with why. Today, I want to look at this from a different and a more practical perspective. I want to look at why having a why is not enough. To unlock the value, to unlock the benefit, we need to embed the why. We need to embed meaning, because by doing this, we can become more innovative, more engaged, more productive, and at the same time have a greater sense of belonging and wellness. Now, if you'll forgive me for a moment to recap, it's been known for eons that doing something we know to be pointless destroys us. The most famous example of this is of Sisyphus. For betraying one of his secrets, the worst punishment Zeus could imagine was to condemn Sisyphus to an eternity of useless effort, unending frustration, by being made to push a huge boulder continually uphill. More recently, the Victorian engineer William Cubitt was inspired by the sight of prisoners sitting idle to create a new machine. He thought the machine, his invention, would reform offenders by teaching them the habits of industry. The invention was called the treadmill. And yes, this is where the term treadmill originates from. In its original form, it resembled what we today would call a stairmaster. Prisoners were sentenced to hard labor. Hard labor meant they walked the treadmill for at least 6 hours daily, equivalent to climbing Everest from ground level to the peak every 12.5 hours. The penal treadmill has been described as the perfect punishment. The work the prisoners were doing was literally useless, an exhausting, pointless task that fitted with Victorian ideals of atonement achieved through hard work. Of course, there's a massive irony in how we use treadmills today, but that's maybe for later. More recently still, the Russian philosopher Dostoevsky noted that if it were desired to reduce a man to nothing, to punish him atrociously, to crush him in such a manner that even the most hardened murderer would tremble before such a punishment and take fright beforehand, just give him work that is completely useless to the point of absurdity. Humans spend nearly 1/3 of our day at work. So much time is spent at work that it becomes the focal point in providing meaning and identity for our lives. One of the first questions you're asked whenever you meet someone new is, what do you do? It defines you. And the sad truth is, however, that things have not changed that much since Sisyphus's time. A UK Gov poll from a couple of years ago found that only 50% of people with a full-time job, half the workforce, were entirely sure their job made any sort of meaningful contribution to the world at all. 37% of people in a full-time job in the UK were entirely sure their job made no meaningful contribution to the world at all. Literally, if the job was taken away, no one would know the difference. And this problem of meaningless work is getting worse. According to the annual State of the Enterprise Work Survey conducted in America, the amount of time the average American office worker says that they devote to their core duties, i.e., the job they believed they were employed to do, was only 40% of the time. This seemingly pointless nature of work comes at great personal cost. The moral of Sisyphus' story, of Cubit's invention, of Dostoevsky's musings, is that doing something we believe to be pointless destroys us. Dostoevsky said the murderer would rather commit suicide than do a pointless task. Given this, is it any wonder that if work is meaningless, we're seeing a rise of mental health issues in the workplace? But meaningless work comes not just at a personal cost, but comes at a great organizational cost. To paraphrase a recent Harvard Business Review article, they stated, organizations that provide highly meaningful work generate productivity savings equivalent to a 29% pay rise for each worker. In addition, employees who derive meaning from their work are more than 3 times as likely to stay with the organization, they're more engaged, they're more innovative, and they're healthier. Research by Google found that meaningful work is one of the 5 key tenets of a successful team. And in a way, we all intuitively know this. I can prove it to you. A real-life example for you is that of teachers. According to the Guardian newspaper, 1/5 of teachers expect to leave the classroom in the next 2 years. 40%, 2 in 5 of them, want to quit within 5 years. Why? Because of out-of-control workload pressures. Their job is no longer about teaching. Go back to that State of American Worker survey. I said 60% of the job is no longer what we believed it to be core activity. What does someone go into teaching to do? To teach. What do we get them to do? Admin. Tests. It's not what they thought the job was going to be. And this teacher example shows that whilst you need to start with why, having a why, knowing the why, is nowhere near enough. I know firsthand from my 10-year-old daughter that her teachers at school, their why is immensely motivational, immensely uplifting. Teachers inspire future generations. They enable children to aspire, achieve. They obviously, demonstrably, clearly are making a difference. They have an impact on people, on younger minds, amazing stuff. But as the Guardian article said, knowing that, having that, is nowhere near enough. The tasks being pointless destroy the why and the meaning. So what can we do? How can we achieve a greater depth of meaning in work? And thus, how can we unlock the value, both organizationally and personally? Here are 3 practical ideas. There was a famous lottery experiment conducted by the Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman. In it, half the participants picked their number at random out of the hat, randomly picked one. The remaining half were given a blank lottery ticket and invited to pick any number you want. You choose. All the numbers are put in the hat. And just before the winning number was drawn, researchers went round the room and offered to buy the lottery tickets back from the participants. Now, regardless of geography, regardless of demography, researchers found they had to pay at least 5 times as much to those who would have the choice of choosing their number, pick whatever number you want, versus those who had just simply plucked a random one out of the pot. Now, this makes no sense whatsoever. A lottery is pure chance. Every ticket, whether you picked one at random or whether you chose your favorite number, has the same odds of winning. Yet those who had the choice valued their ticket massively more than those who did not. And this result reveals a truth about human nature. When we choose for ourselves, when we decide we're going to do something, we are far more committed to the outcome by a factor of 5 to 1. Now, we can't just have people randomly turn up to work and choose whatever they want to do and just go and do it because they've got choice. But you can apply the lessons of the lottery ticket experiment to work. And a key place this can be done is how we ask people to do things, whether it's on a job description or in doing a task. Simply do not explicitly define everything for your people. Don't straitjacket them by defining place, time, who, where, when, and whatever. Rather, define the 5 or 6 outputs that you require. Define the 5 or 6 things that define success. And then give the individual the freedom to choose how best to deliver against them. Give them that freedom, that choice, and in so choosing, they will be far more committed to delivering the output. Some organizations have taken this to the logical endgame. McKinsey has written an article where they describe a bank where the senior management defined the key things they wanted to achieve, whether it was targets, growth, revenue, whatever. They shared it with the next team down in the hierarchy, asked that team for feedback, and then invited each individual team member to write their own lottery ticket. You've seen the goals, what we want to do. What will you individually do to deliver against those goals? The job holder wrote down the activities against the broad guidelines of what they wanted to achieve and what they've described. They agreed it and signed it off together, and thus trickled the process down to the bottom line. This took a lot longer than normal, but it empowered people. It gave people choice. It gave people freedom. Interestingly, this method aids innovation because people can choose how to deliver against the broad outlines. And actually, if you think about it, who knows best how to do the job? The job holder, the person doing it, the person at the coalface, or the manager, the person who by definition isn't at the coalface. It empowers people. It's the ultimate implementation of the lottery ticket experiment. In essence, it's what Steve Jobs said in his book, which is now a decade old. It makes no sense at all to hire smart people and tell them what to do. Hire smart people so they can tell you what to do. And the second way to give meaning is to connect each person's activity, what they're doing in the day-to-day grind, to the organization's why, your purpose. This is exemplified by the oft-used example of the conversation between President Kennedy and a NASA janitor. In his visit to NASA in 1962, President Kennedy saw a janitor carrying a broom. He interrupted his tour, walked over and said to the janitor, "Hi, I'm Jack Kennedy. What are you doing?" To which the janitor replied, "I am helping put a man on the moon." Now, on one level, you could say, janitor isn't really doing that, he's cleaning floors. And yeah, he was. He absolutely was. And he knew it. And he absolutely was helping put a man on the moon. The janitor knew his role. He knew how important his role was. And the success of his role was critical to the organization achieving its purpose. The janitor knew he was a cog in the process, but he was, like all cogs in the process, really important because there's other cogs intertwined and relying on him. If he did not do his cleaning job well, then a subsequent stage in the process would fail. And so would the mission. He knew exactly where he sat. He knew how it was all tied up. He knew how it tied together. He knew how important his individual contribution was. It provided alignment. It provided focus. It gave his job meaning. So how do you tie it all together? How do you show how each cog fits into the processes and wheels so that you're all working together to a shared common purpose, a shared common goal? As an example, can you show on a diagram how what you do in the day-to-day grind, the reports you do, the conversations you had, the work you do, how it connects to others, and ultimately how it connects together to the purpose? Can you show how it hangs together at the department, team, activity level? And if you can't find a link between something you do and the purpose, reflect, consider, what's missing? What do you need to do to tie it all up? And if after that you cannot get a link between your activity and the company's purpose, the goals, maybe question, why are you doing it? Are you in fact doing a meaningless task? Now, having this shared purpose, this shared common goal, the sense we're all in it together, is proving even more critical in this COVID world. A challenge for our virtual way of working is that communication within a team is likely quite good. Likely within a team environment, there's lots of calls with the manager and his people and his staff, there's virtual beers on a Friday, virtual lunches, one-to-ones, and so on. Brilliant. But that advance in communication vertically is at the cost of communication horizontally. A lack of communication between the teams. It's horizontal communication that is missing, and teams are slowly drifting apart. This lack of connection creates a lack of shared identity. It reduces psychological safety, the sense that it's free and safe to speak up in a group. It can lead to people withholding information. It can lead to a fracturing of relationships. It's them over there that's the problem. We're fine, it's them over there, flipping out, you see them. It increases conflict. As an example, a study of airline pilots showed it was possible to predict a flight's timeliness and fuel efficiency just by watching the first 15 minutes of the captain's meeting with the crew. Firstly, ineffective captains tended to monopolize the conversation. Effective ones did far more two-way communication, spending more time engaging with the crew, listening to them, encouraging the crew to talk to one another about the task at hand. But more than just good communication, effective captains created a sense of shared identity. They talked about everyone holistically as we, not just the people on the plane, not just the pilots and the flight attendants, but maintenance crews, gate agents, even the people in the traffic controllers, in the remote tower, who they never ever get to see. We are all together. We are one team responsible for the safety of the flight. Ineffective captains reinforced fault lines between the subgroups. They were like, we, the pilots, but everyone else is you. Now, effective captains created a team environment. We are all in this together. But notice the very other subtle element at play. A clearly articulated goal. We are one team responsible for the safety of this flight. Now, Goal setting is not something that first comes to mind when talking about team identity. Most managers look at team building exercises, what's your favorite pizza topping or something? But shared goals create a shared sense of identity. And once we have clear goals, we can have clear roles so that we know who is responsible for what. That helps prevent social loafing, the fear that someone else is just doing nothing or taking advantage of it. It helps people feel and realize that their role, their activity is really important to achieve the goal. Cleaning the floor is really important. So show your purpose, have the goal, show how it all connects together, and thus how important every single person's contribution is to enable you to achieve. Show how everyone helps get that man to the moon and return them safely to Earth. Third way to bring meaning to work is to create a sense of belonging for everyone, the social connection. If you notice, language is fascinating. Notice when relationships break up or we experience some social hurt, some social injustice, the language often used to describe how we're feeling is phrases like, "You hurt my feelings, you've broken my heart." And this isn't peculiar just to English. A study of social pain terminology across 15 languages found that social pain words are almost exclusively borrowed from the physical pain domain in each language. Why? Why would we do this? It can't break a heart in that way. Feelings can't be hurt. But the language we use to describe social pain is the same as that used to describe physical pain. Research published in the Neuro Leadership Journal from the University of California, Los Angeles shows us this is not a coincidence. The brain uses similar neurocircuits to handle social and physical variants of pain and pleasure. Basically, social injury, social pain affects our brains in the same way as physical pain. This is evolutionary. You can't stop it. Back in the day, our basic survival needs are food, water, shelter. And we feel pain when those needs are not met. We're hungry, we're cold, we're thirsty. But at birth and for years afterwards, we're immature. We're totally reliant on people to provide the basic needs for us. We need caregivers. We need someone to look after us. Without a caregiver, we'd simply die. Evolution has wired us to feel pain when basic needs are not met, but it's therefore also wired us to feel pain when we lack or anticipate a lack of social connection. A strong negative response to exclusion is a neural alarm system. It protects us against social exclusion and, in the day, death. Physical and social pain are experienced in the same way, but consider this in a work context. You'd never expect anyone with a broken leg to run from one meeting to the next. But when someone is in social pain, we treat it as not a work issue, should be dealt with outside the office. Or worse, we say that people should get over their hurt feelings. You'd never say to anyone, "Get over your broken leg." Now, exclusion is in the eye of the beholder, but the impact is real and significant. When humans feel excluded, whenever they do not feel like full members of a team, the brain reacts. It creates a threat state. Excluding people from a team lowers their IQ and makes them 25% less productive. Now, I'm sure no one ever consciously excludes people, but consider how this can play out, for example, in meetings. In her book, More Time to Think, Nancy Klein observed that even pre-COVID, in meetings, it's common for people to get 20 seconds or less before someone interrupts them. In groups, we're often far more focused on contributing and concentrating on what I want to say, rather than listening to what you're saying. And by interrupting a person, We don't allow them to complete their wave of thinking. We limit the extent and depth of the group's thinking. We destroy focus. We destroy creativity. And by talking over people, by not giving them the chance to speak, we exclude. Yeah. Did you get your chance to have your say in the meeting today? Did you have a chance to speak up? Did you have a chance to give your thoughts and not be interrupted? Or was it the same voices speaking? Interruptions destroy focus and creativity. To quote Luna Lovegood from Harry Potter, I've interrupted a deep thought, haven't I? I can see it growing smaller in your eyes. And we've all experienced this. You're thinking, collecting your thoughts, and you're just about, and someone interrupts. It's gone. Ensure everyone has a chance to speak without any fear of interruption. Give everyone 2 minutes. No interruptions allowed. And while someone is talking, pay them intense attention. Demonstrably listen to them. Now, social exclusion has a detrimental effect, but equally critically, the opposite is true. Our brain's reward system reacts as strongly to social rewards like recognition as it does to more tangible rewards. When our physical needs are met, we feel pleasure. Eating whilst hungry, drinking whilst thirsty, are all pleasurable experiences. The brain reacts as strongly when we feel social recognition. This is why high-performing teams are not made up of acquaintances, people who happen to come across each other. High-performing teams are made up of far stronger bonds, friendship. Colleagues may well let you down. Friends don't. Friends accept you for who you are. They support you. They're there for you. And you are there for them. Studies have shown friendship-centric teams are far less likely to fail. This is the reason why connection and attachment to a group of colleagues is a far bigger motivator for most employees than money. Gallup found that having a best friend at work makes you 7 times more likely to be engaged in your work. And notice in this context of meaning what the question's getting at. People want to work with great people. Certainly true of younger generations where 80% of millennials, those 35 and under, express a desire to work with great people. Great people are people who believe in something. They have a purpose in what they're doing. There's a vision, there's a goal in what we're trying to achieve. Interestingly, this is why the British Army adverts are so clever. Their strapline, this is belonging. Brilliant. Camaraderie, friendship, people who ultimately you're trusting with your life. Belonging's the secret to unlocking friendship, creativity, productivity, and embedding meaning. In concluding, Stephen Hawking once said, "Work gives you meaning and purpose, and life is empty without it." In the COVID world, people have been increasingly questioning why. What's the point of this? Why do I live in the city? Why do I live in a big house? Why do I move to the country? Why? We're searching for meaning and purpose. It's not enough to start with why. It's not enough to talk about meaning. To realize the benefits, we need to embed the why across our organizations. Ultimately, we need to show that we mean it. Before the pandemic, Harvard stated, meaning is the new money. Employees who feel that they belong, those that find meaning in their work, are more productive, more innovative, have longer tenure, and are in themselves healthier. This is a story where there are no losers, where everybody wins. Organizations that embed purpose and meaning at the core of what they do will find it easier to attract and retain the talent to survive and thrive. Ultimately, going forward, the future of work is not about robots and AI. It's about people, because they're your only USP. Organizations that embed purpose and meaning at the core of what they do will win. Thank you very much.